Hey, Kieran, welcome to the show. As way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Brian. Thank you very much for having me on again today. And look, it's a pleasure to be able to get this opportunity to speak with you guys. But yeah, I'll jump straight in and give you a bit of an introduction to myself. My name's Kieran O'Connor, CEO and co-founder of GrowStream. Now, give you a bit of a background on my sales career. Started sort of at the age of 16. I'll be honest, bit of a norm. I didn't go to university. I decided I wanted to jump straight into the sales career. At the age of sort of 16, I decided to go into sort of insurance side of sales. So your car insurance, your breakdown, that side of things. Very much more of an inbound role, people calling in, and your job would be to upsell and cross-sell them. So started on the sort of SDR role, sales development rep, and then quickly went into tech sales, so software as a service at the age of 18. Again, started off as a sales development rep. Yeah. So, again, still pretty young and still learning a lot of things. Quickly developed into, I guess you'd call a sales development guy, but more of a closer rather than the guy who's warming up the leads. Yep. At the age of just 18. Done really well. Loved the sort of online demonstration all the way through to being able to take the card payments as every sales guy would. Done really well there, sort of done $1 million in a year in revenue. And quickly become number one within that business, and then was actually tasked to go to Orlando, Florida from London. So moved to Orlando, Florida at the age of 20. Again, tasked to go to that business and help their sales team, and again sell within the US the same product. This was a point of sale product, so you guys are familiar with POS. Again, done really, really well in the US, become the top sales guy within month 2. Love my time in the US. So yeah, well, exactly. It's where you're a bit gutted it wasn't number one, but quickly developed into top sales guy there within the US. Unfortunately, my visa did run out, so I decided to head back to the UK. A lot of the listeners probably wouldn't know a place called Norwich in the UK. It's certainly in the sticks. So I always say London so people know. Moved to London and then decided I wanted to go into the leadership side of things. Really understand how to manage salespeople, coach salespeople, develop them from a young age all the way up to kind of high performance salespeople. So at the age of 22, went into a sales management role, leading a team of 8 in the UK, building the team up from CRMs to sales strategies. Quickly developing that into a team of 8, as I mentioned. One of the highest performing teams within the industry within year 1. And then again was tasked to become a commercial director and head to Austin, Texas. So, at 23, I was then leading 3 global operations, multiple teams, and yeah, really, really loving it and learning a lot. After I finished that role, I thought, it's time to give my knowledge and my expertise to multiple companies rather than going into a full-time role. I then set up GrowStream about 1.5 years ago now. And ultimately what we do is we go into businesses and look at 4 key areas. Number 1 is your structure. So how they're structuring their daytime, the sales team's time, looking at how they handle their leads. So their touch point process, their follow-up, and then their follow-back. So what we've done is we've built a clear four-touch process and that we now go and execute in businesses all over the globe. Of course, mainly here in London. That's where a lot of business happens. So still pretty young, but that's a quick cap.
And so are you more on the consulting side, or do you outsource the sales part of it?
Yeah, so we're more on the consultative side now. We've really honed in and focused on the 4-pillar process, as we call it, and really going into businesses. And what we always do first is we provide an audit. So we look at their current processes in them 4 areas to really understand what's going on. And then we'll bespoke the package off the back of that, because it's really important for us to understand each individual business rather than a one-fits-all process.
Okay. And what do you typically see wrong or egregious?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot that you see. I think something that I'm really passionate about is self-development. It's a big problem within the sales arena. I find that a lot of people expect the company to give them everything, and they don't want to go off and do it themselves. So something we find a lot is attitude. Certainly attitude is a big problem, both from internally and externally. So that's something we look to fix straight away. And then lead handling. You'd be very surprised at the amount of problems that we see when people just don't want to pick up the phone. They'll get an inbound lead and they'll try it once a week or twice a week and then kind of close it for unable to contact. Processes, no clear processes in place. And a big and a funny one you'll laugh at is lack of CRM automations. It's crazy. You've got Salesforce, HubSpot, all these great CRMs, but people don't seem to want to use them properly.
You don't want to use them or don't have them, or?
Well, they have, all of them seem to have
They
them,
all
but
have them.
they seem to use them for notes and calling.
Yeah.
And actually, you can use them for email templates, task management,
Right.
dashboard management, and it seems like they're very underused. And it amazes me considering how much they cost.
So tell me, since you sold in both the US and in the UK, I haven't sold in the UK, so I have no idea. Well, is there a difference?
Massively, yeah, definitely.
Really?
I find the US customers make a quicker decision, a lot
Yeah.
quicker to part with their money and actually invest in the ROI. I find in the UK we're a lot more reserved, a lot more analytical, and we want more time to make decisions before
Yeah.
actually pulling the trigger.
Yeah. And did you sell in the entire United States, or?
Yeah, so we've done US and Canada. So
Yeah.
it was really good fun. I'd have to say I prefer selling in the US than I do in the UK.
Well, because I've sold pretty much all across the US and Canada, and I found it varied greatly. This Atlanta would be completely different than Texas, which would be completely different than Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
which is completely different than Boston and New York. Boston and New York are somewhat similar. They just swear at you with different words.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But how about as far as like communication style, and how long does it take to warm them up? What do you talk to them about? Do you stick solely with facts and figures, or do you first establish rapport?
Definitely. So, something that, I hear from yourself and many top sales guys, rapport and value is up there. I think I listened to a podcast from yourself a couple of weeks ago. I think hit the nail on the head. Too many people are wanting to talk about features and benefits too
Yeah.
quickly, and don't actually understand the customer or want to listen. I think too many people have forgotten the art of building relationships and actually connecting with individuals rather than just trying to ram sort of information and features down their throat. So it's a big problem. We even when we're looking at scripts, I've looked at a lot of scripts over the last year and a half in different individual companies, and you'd be shocked at the time where there's no room for rapport. It's just question, feature, benefit. Can I book an appointment? So,
Right.
it's a big problem.
Yeah, because if you just do that, you're really just a human commercial.
Absolutely.
Right.
You sound like you're a bit of a questionnaire.
Robocall.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
might as well have that on a one pager on your website.
And how about as far as money motivation? Because you probably deal with a lot of young
Yep.
salespeople, and I was young once, so you'll have to refresh my memory. Because there's all kinds of reputations. Do you find any consistency, or is it just individual?
No, I think the biggest problem I do find is people talk the talk but don't want to walk the walk.
Do the work, yeah.
A lot of people are money motivated. I'm exactly in that era where I loved money. The typical, I want to buy my first Rolex. I want to do this by the age of this age, which is great. But what you quickly learn is there's no shortcut to achieve that. You've got to put in the hours. You've got to put in the self-development. I read 2 books a month to this day. Watch multiple videos a day, podcasts a day. And I think too many people want to jump straight to the money. And they don't understand the investment before getting there. But yeah, I think there's still that young, hungry individuals about who want to make the money. I think the educational part is, well, we need to start to educate them individuals about the period of time that it can take. Of course, we can always shortcut that via self-development and getting to know the right people, but I still think there's a lot of people who just want the money.
How about as far as being coachable and putting their ego aside?
Yeah, it's certainly tough in an industry. You know yourself as well, especially when you're going into businesses and looking at their processes, sales managers, sales directors. It is sometimes having that battle where they don't want someone to tell them they're wrong. But I think you have to approach it in a different way, that you're just an extended part of their team and you just want to help develop them. So, if I was talking to an individual, I'd be looking at their key goals. For example, you mentioned it could be money, and then working back and saying, great, so if we can increase your conversion rate or your close rate, then you're going to earn X amount more money to allow you to achieve it. So it's really about allowing them to know that you're beside them and not against them.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about not using or leveraging the CM for all that it can do, and instead of it looking at it like a journalist, where the manager is just looking at the dashboard and seeing what color you are at right now. Well, what else do you see egregious? Is it laziness? Is it faking it? Is it only working on the best stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of laziness. It's a big problem in today's society where, they go online and they see these videos and they get pumped up about how they're going to become a top salesman within a month and 2 months. And, from the get-go of being in sales. And, people just want the juicy leads. You know what it's like. A lead comes in from the website and a lead comes in maybe from a third party. That website lead gets, 20, 30 times more attention than the other one. The biggest problem I find in today's sales is there's so many inbound leads that people kind of pick and choose. Back when I was cold calling and I was calling off lists and having to really work hard, it seems like there's not so much of that these days. So,
right. Yeah, but I think marketing has, since they're incentivized by leads, they produce content that attracts the most people, not qualified candidates.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So they have a very broad, and I see there's a very famous company that does that. And that causes a problem because it's not a lead. It's really just a contact.
Absolutely.
And today, especially in B2B, we know who should be interested in our stuff. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you recommend or coach as far as outreach? What sequence or channel or style?
Yeah, it would really depend on the business.
Yeah.
If someone's selling a sort of low product, for example, I mentioned in the EPOS game or something like that, there's a lot of leads that are coming into their CRM. You go on Google and you type in EPOS or something like that. So, I use a lot of verticals. First of all, obviously, you're going to use your email, your CRM, your text messaging platform, linking that in with things like your LinkedIn. And then obviously going in and finding alternative numbers. To come back to a comment earlier, you mentioned about laziness. Something I see so common about is not going and finding alternative numbers. Going on their website, going on their LinkedIn, just, this number doesn't work, you must not be interested, dead. So to answer that question, I look at every vertical and look at how that can all play together. LinkedIn is obviously massive these days. A lot of people on LinkedIn. So first of all, you'd go look, the number that you've got on there in the email, then look for alternatives, then look at LinkedIn, then look at alternatives into the business to get to that decision maker. So it's really just a funnel of all of them put together.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it would depend on the company of which way I'd go about it.
And a lot of people sell things that are very time oriented, meaning that people will look long before they need.
Yep.
Right. It might be, say, like a summer house or something. You might look for years before you buy one. And I think a lot of sales reps think if they're not buying this month, this quarter, they're not interested. It's just a matter of time, or you can accelerate that. And people are looking for very short-term, quick hits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something we talk about, in the follow-up process, in a lot of the talks that we do and a lot of seminars that we do. It's kind of that final thing, that follow-up process. And we say it's something that no one wants to talk about. And we see time and time again. My biggest deals took me 2 years to close. Yeah. And it's so important because you need to stay at the forefront of their mind. At the end of the day, a lot of teams, you know what it's like. You go into a month, you're back to zero, and you're like, right, what do I do? Whereas if you'd have kept building that pipeline of them slower burners, each month you've still got stuff to go back to. So it is something, especially in the UK, that I see a lot, that people don't want to put in the work. They just want the quick wins. And actually they become very lazy. They don't book follow-ups. If we're talking about, for example, a summer house and, we've shown you around, I've really shown you the value, shown you my knowledge and becoming an expertise in that industry and shown you I can help you. I want to book a next step. You're not looking right now, that's fine, but I need to book a next step with you to understand what's going to happen between now and then, and keep at the forefront of your mind. We use the analogy of Formula One, right? It's about staying in pole position. If you're in pole position and then you're letting your competitors overtake you, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So it's something we talk about all the time. Engaging with them on LinkedIn, sharing their comments, liking it, just staying at the forefront of their mind. So when they are ready, hopefully you've done a good enough job to say, you know what, I trust that guy. He was fantastic. We need to speak to him.
That's it. Because I always think that what I found is one of the number one skills of great salespeople is they can have conversations with a client that doesn't have to be about the product.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be about baseball or football or the weather, but it's something that's of interest to the client so that they want to talk with you. They don't have to talk with you.
Yeah, they don't feel like they're being pitched every 5 minutes. That's the biggest.
Yeah, because that follow-up or that next meeting scheduled is key. Yeah. But it has to be value to them.
Definitely. And I think too many times, like we said earlier, salespeople want to talk about them, benefit to them, but don't actually want to understand the client. Now, of course, some of that will be talking about their favorite football team, baseball team, and all of that good stuff. But, you need to be able to connect with them on a level and understand them.
Whatever they care about. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, you've talked about, I think before, their kids, their wife, what are they doing tonight? It could be simple things like that as well. But they want to call you back. They know when they see your number, what it's like. So that person's about to pitch.
Yeah. It's not a cringe. It's right. It's like, oh yeah,
not that guy.
Yeah, right. It would be a nice 15-minute diversion.
Exactly. And I think too many people don't think about that.
Yeah. And I always, when I did on-prem training, I would be like, if you can't hold a 30-minute conversation about their role in their industry, you're not a professional salesperson. And you don't have to know it that much. You have to have great questions, curiosity and interest-based questions to get the other person talking.
No, absolutely.
Right. And all the best salespeople I've had always could do that. When you saw their number, you wanted to talk with them. They were interesting and interested in what you were doing.
Yeah.
Memorable. Have you found trying to teach this outward mindset, the curiosity and the interest, is that hard when people are just getting into sales?
Definitely. I think too many people just they're like, well, how can I close it? How can I close it? Right. And you have to really rein them back and say, look, we absolutely, of course, want to win the deal, but there is a process in that. And like we said earlier, too many people want to jump past the process and just close the deal and earn the commission. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down. And as you've rightly said, the top sales guys understand that. They understand it's a process. And it's a marathon in sales. It's not a quick sprint. Of course, there will be quick wins in there when people need something quickly. But there's a lot of kickback, especially from youngsters, because they're not trained like that. They're trained to just go for the kill. You've seen the videos of the certain sales trainers, and they, you see people watching on their mobiles. They get pumped up about, like we said earlier, Ferraris and watches, and they're going to become this sales guru and ram things down people's throats. And they then bring that to the workplace, and then suddenly we're coaching them a different way and saying, "Whoa, hang on a second. Right,
you're not a killer." Yeah.
Right, exactly. But people want to think that they close their first deal and suddenly they think they're the best thing, and they're a killer, and it works for every customer is the same, and and it's not until they start to kind of their numbers go down and they realize actually we need to go back to basics here.
And that's it, because that's it. They go on YouTube and they watch these people, but you got to understand, he wasn't selling, he was stealing. That's why he went to jail. So
exactly that.
He can't teach you how to sell. He can teach you how to steal, right? Anyone could lie, but that's not what we want to do. And most of us are not selling something in a one-call sale. It requires conversation, multiple conversations, time gaps for thinking about it, investigating and comparing it, and then a next step, show it, get the technical sale, get the business sale. And I think today there's a huge gap in that even the leaders don't understand that, because everyone's under pressure. And most CEOs just want sales to work. Just, I don't know how you do it or what you do, but just do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think you made a valid point there as well about too many people don't understand the knock-on effect of going for that quick deal. I've had customers who have bought multiple products from multiple companies that I've been at, because you still have that relationship. and they understand how you work and you understand how they work. So I think that's sometimes a lost art in today as well.
Yeah. Now, why didn't you go into like the outsourced sales business?
Well, yeah, I mean, we looked at it. I think, it's a tough game. A lot of people, especially in the UK, are outsourcing to Africa and places like that,
Really?
where,
Yeah.
where you can hire someone sort of £300-400 a month. Whereas my ethos is I want my guys to be trained to the level that I know they're closing and they're providing my clients with an ROI. When you start to factor in the wages, especially of London and places like that, to get the right people, it becomes very hard to run it at a good level.
Yeah. Is it more expensive than the US? Do you know? Or
In terms of
salaries and stuff?
yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it really depends on where you are. When I worked in the US, there was a lot more flexibility in the US and a lot more, you could work across the US and find great salespeople all over the US. You had less stringent HR processes, notice periods, things like that. So it was a lot, whereas here, you've got the HR, you've then got all of the wages, the salaries, then you've got the pensions and things like that. So, I really wanted to focus on, what I love and what I'm good at, and really,
Yeah.
it's something that I've been bad at in the past, is not focusing. And sometimes I think it's important in a business to really focus on delivering value and actually understanding, you need to really consistently hone down on what you're good at. So I think that's why, we stayed clear of that.
But you're still kind of limited by how many hours you have, right?
So that's our biggest challenge right now as a business. Certainly my biggest challenge, there's not enough of me, as we know. A lot of consultants will work typically on a day rate or a project rate,
Right.
which means you're obviously limited. There's only a certain amount of days in a month. So of course, moving forward, my goal would certainly be to go into writing books and more webinar-based training and things like that. But I think, the early days, you really need to put in the work and get in front of the clients and deliver the value. And as you can see, you've got a great brand, got hundreds of thousands of followers. And, once we can get to that level, then I think that's when we can start to adapt the model.
Yeah. And where do you see it taking? Just hiring more people or just
Yeah, I
getting
mean,
it more online?
my goal would be, first of all, putting it more online and building the brand of the business, and then looking at maybe a sort of franchise model where you can have sort of a trainer in each area of the UK who's responsible for that area, all built on a certain course and delivering a certain way of doing things. So that's the goal. It's a learning curve, of course, going from working in a business as a commercial director and sales manager to being responsible for marketing, finances, taxes, hiring,
Right. It's a lot.
and delivering. So, it's been a learning curve. And I think that's where people like yourself and me, we love what we do because we throw ourselves in and we adapt and we learn.
Yeah.
And it's something that I say to people time and time again, don't see it as failing, see it as learning, and make sure you're putting yourself out there.
And what advice do you have, given that I'm sure you made a lot of mistakes and, to the people like who are just starting to get into sales, what would you say? Do this, just shut up and do it. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Earn your credits. Don't just do the 9 to 5, 9 to 6s. I know there's a lot of taboo about this work-life balance, and work is different to life. It's something that drives me crazy. Look, I put in 18 hours a day. I still do. It's 8 years later. I read 2 books a month. I watch podcasts. I go to meetups. I go to networking events. I'm constantly wanting to learn and get better. So my first thing is don't believe everything that's online. You've got to put in the hours. And then the second one is self-develop. Really, really self-develop yourself, not only inside of work, but outside of work. Biggest thing that I found useful is coaches, first of all.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're a sales coach or not, you still need a coach. I've got coaches, I have business coaches. It really does fast track your progression. I'm 24, I've done well, but I'm still not happy. And there's people that just think that was easy and you kind of just jump there. So mentor and coach, and then putting in the hours and self-developing, they'd kind of be my top 3 tips.
Yeah. Because I always talk about working smart and stuff, but I still put insane hours in.
Exactly.
Right. It's not like, that 4-hour work week mentality. There's ways of doing that, but a career salesperson, because I have this kind of idea of what I call a salespreneur, is you may be an employee, but you got to think like an entrepreneur, right? And I think giving people a base salary does them a disservice because it gives them a sense of comfort that they shouldn't have, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think too many people think literally about their job role. It's something actually we're really passionate about. I have people come to me and they're upset or they're having a bad month, and they say, but I'm just a sales executive and I'm not doing very well in life. I'm like, well, hang on a second. You're actually your own business. Now, forget the whole, it's your personal brand, but actually you need to look at how many leads have you had this month and how much does that cost the business and how much have you made for the business? Are we in profit? Yeah. So we really do, teach a different mindset, both internally to the business and externally. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Especially in London, the base salaries are rising and rising for sales guys. And it's just giving them that excuse not to do that final phone call, not to pick up the phone, not to do that email. So we're breeding laziness.
Because people, when I say that to people, they say, well, then I would make less. No, you would make more, because the comp plan, any company would pay you more if they didn't have to pay you a base.
Absolutely.
Right? And what all the complaints I get from people are things outside of their control. Their manager, the overuse of the CRM, the mindless metrics versus smart metrics. And, can you change those? Probably not. You can whine about them, but that doesn't get you anywhere. You got to focus on what you have control over, which is your time, your prioritization, and how well you do things.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, you hit the nail on the head. It comes back to what I say about self-developing. Look at what you can control. Yeah. Are you doing 100%? And if you are, then absolutely have that moan and go to the managers and discuss the relevant problems. But you very, very rarely find that you're given it 100%. And once you start to audit yourself.
What does that mean? Right. Yeah, I don't know what 100% means. It's like, could I have put in another 5 minutes? Probably. Right.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people in sales, they read a book and they think they know something. Right. And you know it, but can you do it? Can you apply it? Find a book that fits your sale and turn it into your Quran, your Bible, your owner's manual, and study it over and over again until it becomes automatic.
Yeah, I think, especially when reading, I suffer with dyslexia and, I struggle to read and write at a young age. And, sometimes I can read a book 3 times to get as much value as I can out of it. And something really, and I don't know what your opinion on this is, something that drives me crazy is I sit with a highlighter. Every time I read a book, I have a highlighter so I can go back and look at the key areas and key takeaways that I got from that book. There's so many people who say to me, and I've read X amount of books and X amount of books. I'm like, great. Can you explain to me what tips you need to execute?
Right. Yeah, they know what the book's about, but they don't, it's like one of my favorites is like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. I listen to it at least once a year, right? Because that reinforcement, and then you start to build, it becomes part of who you are. And I think when you're young, you count the number of books versus counting the skills and the innate habits that you've ingrained in yourself. And it's those things that are really going to level you up.
Accountability. It comes down to accountability, being accountable for what you've learned from that book, right? We've all been there, right? It's that time of year where everyone makes their New Year's resolutions. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And, you've got more experience than me, and yourself, you go into businesses and they say they're going to do this and this and this. Within a month, it's all falling apart. And it's the same thing with reading, I'm not the best reader, and I force myself to read, but make sure that I never put a book down without learning anything. Because you can always take one thing away from a book.
Yeah, cool. Hey, where can people go to connect with you and learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn is the best place. Kieran O'Connor, and then you've obviously got Growstream, GROWTH, and then Stream, STREAM, all one word. We're also going to be at the Reading Business Show in the UK, Manchester, London, and Basingstoke in the next couple of months. So yeah, look out for them dates.